Welcome to Stand Corrected. I'm your host, Karee Neptune, here with my co-host, Osei Jumpy. What's up?
What's up? How you doing, brother?
Doing great. TJ Smalls.
Howdy.
How you doing, bro?
Chilling.
Good. The topic we wanted to talk about this week is there's been a spate of gun shootings. Most recent one was in Uvalde, Texas. 21 people were murdered. And it just had me thinking, if we went 100 years in the future, what would be the things they would look back at and say, this was fucking nuts? And I think our gun laws are one thing people are going to look back on and say, this actually didn't make any sense. How are school children getting murdered in their classrooms? And how are Black people getting shot up in supermarkets? Although that part does make more sense if you think about America's history. So I just wanted to, when you think about guns and violent crime and shootings, like what kind of stuff do you think about, TJ?
Well, first, I think it's if you're talking about let's go 100 years in the future and they look back, they would like, how about this? If we were to go 150 years in the past, right, and tell them what we're doing now, like Tombstone, the shootout at the OK Corral was over gun control.
Yeah.
Like Wyatt Earp was like, "You fucking cowboys can't have guns in town," and they had a shootout over it because back then they were like, guns are bad. Like guns shouldn't be around everybody. Like there's no reason for you to have a gun in a saloon. And
Right.
here we are 150 years later, people are like,
and those are like revolvers and rifles, like
right,
bolt action rifles. Yeah.
fucking six shooters, like
Yeah.
six shots. And now they're like, you guys sell fucking guns, you sell Gatling guns and submachine guns to just 18-year-olds just for fucking fun. We strung up Billy the Kid for this shit, and y'all just let these fuckers run around with these guns.
Yeah.
That's the amazing part, is that we have regressed to the point where people who will constantly spout off, well, the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, and then you ask, hey, what about that good old Third Amendment? And they're like, there's three of them. There's 27 of them, you asshole. Like,
Right.
like,
Right.
but people are stuck on that first and second and have no real clue as to what they say. That is the part that, when it comes to gun control and gun rights, and not how this happened. I know how it happened, lobbyists and NRA and, racism and all that other good stuff. But the fact that here we are in 2022, in the middle of 2022, half the year is out. And here we are still talking about the same shit that we've been talking about since we became adults. Columbine was when we were at 17, 18.
Yeah.
And here we are, middle-aged men, and we're still, like, people are still talking about this shit as if it's shocking. 21 people died, and the vast majority of them were children. And that's no different than when the two dudes shot up Columbine. Those were children, and in 25 years, nothing has fucking changed, right? Like nothing.
Yeah.
Like we're like, the same thing could happen will happen. It will happen.
It will
again.
happen.
Yeah.
It'll happen this month. It'll happen this week. That's the only thing that we know, is that we can predict that this shit is going to happen. It happens no place else on earth. There was a shooting in Nigeria, and that made headline news because they're like, there's a mass shooting in Nigeria. Like, what's going on? And Nigerians are over there like, stop being like Americans. Like, we got our own fucking problems. Like, y'all want to bring this American shit over here and shoot up churches and shit. Y'all are insane. That's the whole thing. Is just, for me, and like, I honestly don't like, I understand the utility of guns. Like, I've shot guns. Guns are fucking fun. Like, right, it makes you feel like you got the biggest balls on earth when you're shooting some shit. But at the same time, like, I understand that I myself personally am an idiot when it comes to a gun. Like, I would, if I had a gun, it would be loaded at all times. It would be within arm's reach. I'd never lock it up, because What's the point of having
What's the point of that?
if it's locked up? Like I had a dude I worked with once who was like, yeah, my wife makes me keep the gun over here and the bullets over here. And it's like, what fucking good is that? Like that's
if someone's in your house, what are you gonna do? Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna be like, wait a second, while I go get my bullets and put them in this gun. No, so you're gonna have a loaded gun, and it's gonna be close to where people are. And to me, that's just that makes you an idiot. But that's how you have to do it. That is inherently how you need to have a gun if you're going to keep it around for protection. You gotta be on the couch, and it's gotta be under the cushion, because otherwise, like, why do you have it? Then you have it for offense, and I don't need it I definitely don't need it for offense. I'm not out here trying to do nothing. So if you need it for defense, then you got to have it on you, because if somebody you're living a life that you feel like somebody gonna kick your door in. So if somebody kicks your door in there, you're on the couch playing PlayStation, you don't have time to run in the back and get it.
Right.
So if your mindset is I have a gun because I'd rather keep it on me than not. You want to live like a rapper and say rap shit, then you got to literally keep that gun on you.
Right.
Like if you're like, I have it for self-defense in the home, then you got to keep that gun. Like you got to walk around your fucking house holstered. Otherwise, it's a useless instrument.
Useless, yeah. Now, Osei,
that's where I'm at.
So, I mean, what do you think about that? He kind of referenced the idea that it seems like we're going backwards. I mean, that's kind of the theme of our show. We're going backwards in a lot of. You disagree with that?
Well, I don't think we're going backwards. I don't think we're going forwards. So, like, if not going forwards is backwards, then fine. Part of the thing with guns, especially when it comes to like ARs and what have you. So, like, there are more. Everyone who's listening to this thing, go ahead and look it up. There are more guns in the United States than there are people. Right. And I think in terms of ARs, there's something like 20 to 30 million ARs that are out there, some crazy number like that. And of course, a lot of these aren't owned by people who are sensible. A lot of them are owned by people who are like either they want them as the part of their collection, or they think like there's going to be some kind of uprising. I think a big part of understanding America and weapons is understanding where this all came from, right? So, and I'm going to read the Second Amendment because I think everyone needs to understand actually what's in it, because I think people think that, here's what you'll hear. Second Amendment says, I have the right to bear arms. That's it. We're done. I have the right to bear arms. I have the right to bear arms. Shut the fuck up. Okay. The Second Amendment actually says verbatim, okay, now this is a bunch of like old white dudes that had muskets and guns that you had to like spend 2 minutes to fucking load in order to get this thing done. Not an AR-15 that literally blows up children with a bullet, literally blows them up. The AR-15's bullets are meant to explode human bodies. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So just so that we're out there. All right. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Read that first sentence again. A well-regulated militia. Well-regulated, regulators, mount up. Well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What that basically means, in all layman's terms, is this. If a foreign government or entity tries to come to take your shit, or if your own country comes to try to take your shit and it's in an unjust way, you're able to formulate a well-regulated militia to fight back on that. It doesn't say, hey, jackass 18-year-old whose mommy didn't hug him, you get to have a fucking AR goddamn 15, right? So that's part of the issue there. Now, going along with that, because that narrative has been pushed for so long, the problem is you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, right? So the guns are out there, the manufacturers are out there, the lobbyists are out there. They're gonna make it, they're gonna put it out there. It just kind of is what it is. The only thing you can do at this point is try to dampen demand. Because I know I've been on these shows, I've said a lot of things like demand's a big thing.
Hey, wait, hold on. So I got a question for you. because you said something that I was like, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, right? Like,
yeah,
the guns are out there, and it is what it. But man, look at New Zealand. When they had that shooting, they were like, "Hey, fuck that, fuck this shit."
Right.
Who the fuck do you? They're like, nah, absolutely the fuck not. Round them up. Let's go. This shit is illegal. You can't do this shit no more. No, take your ass to Texas if that's what you want. Like that's how they. So what is it? And this is a question I think we all have answers to. But like, what is it that makes them so different and capable of doing that? And here in the United States, where we refuse, where we're like, nope, can't put the toothpaste back in the jar, and then we take the toothpaste and keep squeezing it.
So the difference is that
cut the top off and scoop it all out with our fingers and shit.
And here's the main difference. In 2020, New Zealand's population was 5 million people. Okay. Like we have 330 million. That's a huge governmental undertaking to be like, okay, everyone agree, number one, and then we have to get you out there. We have to like get people out there to kind of collect the stuff. Like the undertaking, and also like New Zealand didn't have a constitution that for some other reason,
that said,
you know what I mean? Like they don't have the lobbyists who are like, you have to have guns, like guns are freedom. Literally in America, they tell you guns are freedom. So if you are an idiot and you believe that, you believe your gun is your freedom. So like that Charleston Heston, like out of my cold, dead hands, you took that and you ran with it. You see what I'm saying? So like, even if somebody did come in and say, hey, look, your neighborhood, your area has voted to take your AR-15 and turn it into, a tool for education, right? Or turn it into like, like I heard they have like, I heard they have like those like guns for instruments type, things where they take your guns and melt them down and turn them into like, these people ain't trying to hear that shit, right? Like, and the problem is that there's so many folks out there that you would literally have to have military intervention, and now you're feeding into their fantasy of like, this is the part of the game where I get to fight my own government, which is part of the issue. Because when people in the past have been like, oh, let's just go around and take everyone's guns back, their response is, you're gonna have to kill me. And some of those people, not all of them, I would say like maybe 10% are actually about that life, and that's just bad international headlines. Well, New Zealand's a little bit different because the population is smaller.
A lot of what you said is true, but I think a lot of it, especially in the United States, it comes down to people going, it's too big of a problem, shrug, can't do anything with it, instead of looking at not necessarily even out of the box solutions, but going like, okay, granted, we can't stop people from having them that already have them. But what about lost through attrition? Just like they did with machine guns and automatic, like, nah, you can't try to get an Uzi.
Right.
You better know somebody who was in the Israeli self-defense force.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you're not getting one.
Yeah,
because they don't. Yeah. So like, it's the same thing. Like, what is it in America that makes people like Joe Manchin go, nah, I'm never gonna vote to even stop.
Well, going to
the
what you're saying.
Production of it.
Going to what you're saying, like, to me, honestly, it isn't. So, and here's the thing, like, you'll see on TV, people will be like, the problem we have is spineless politicians, right? Like, the problem we have is like, the politicians will go in there and make the rules and make the call and do the thing and blah, blah. I actually don't blame fully. I do blame a good amount, but not fully the politicians. And the reason being is because, let's go to Uvalde, right? It's hot take time. All right. Uvalde, the parents are like, my children.
Oh man, this is gonna be hot.
Oh no, it's gonna be hot. It's gonna be
hot. I've heard this one already.
Look, it's gonna be hot. Look, I look at that shit and I say, you know what? What happened to those children? Those children had no say in what happened to them. Right. They have no say. Even the ones who survived, the ones who they had absolutely no fucking say in what happened to them. Uvalde is made up primarily of 4th and 5th generation Americans who have immigrated from south of the border. Okay. The police force, everyone voted for the city council. They voted for their mayor. and they said, we're going to take 40% of our budget and we're going to put it to the police force. You know why? When Osei says defund, everyone thinks I'm fucking crazy. Like, defund the police? How will we be safe? Okay. You gave 40% of your budget every year goes to police force. There's an active shooter in your children's schools. Two things. One, the cops go in to get their own children and then leave. Okay. Second thing, whilst they leave, people are like, can I go in and get my kid? And they're like, nah, fam. The dude who went in there to go get the kids is, again, like a third or fourth generation Latino who works for the Border Patrol. So his job is to keep people who literally have his name and his lineage from coming into the country to enjoy the life that he's living.
That did what his great grandfather did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you start looking at it, and you're like, okay, so your sheriff is on stage with your congressman, with your mayor, with the governor, and with Ted Cruz. You voted for all that shit. So you believed in this idea of the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, until the bad guy with the gun showed up to murder your children and the good guys with the gun run outside. And now, as the parent who voted for this conservative utopia, I'm supposed to give a shit about you, your kids. I feel terrible. You suck a dick. Hot take.
Well, okay.
Yeah, this is a change. Usually I'm the one who's saying the outrageous things.
Look, at the end of the day, the border patrol guy, am I supposed to believe this guy didn't vote for Trump? Am I supposed to believe this guy was like, Ted Cruz, I don't really like his politics. He had to go in himself. He's the dude who's probably like, yeah, 40% for the police force, defund. You know what? Thin blue line. He's a border patrol dude. He's thin blue line.
Yeah.
Okay? Thin blue line. What happened? What happened? So to me, it's like, look, in California, today is June 7th. It's voting day. If you didn't vote today in your primaries, if you didn't vote in your primaries in your state, you're a fucking asshole. Because at the end of the day, what it comes down to is you have to vote for what is in the best interest of yourself and your family. You have to think about that shit. Forget what you see on Fox News. Forget what you see in your little chat rooms and groups on Facebook and shit. Like, you have to figure out, because here's what no one wants to hear. No one wants to hear own the libs, Second Amendment rights, thin blue line. And then when a gunman goes in and murders your children, and the cops are outside taking 40% of your budget with like special armor and super crazy weapons and a tank and shit, but they can't stop an 18-year-old who, by the way, you voted so that he could get a gun in an hour and murder your kids. I don't want to hear from you. Like, you shut the fuck up.
But here,
your kids, I feel terrible for them.
But here's my counter, and I'm sympathetic to Democrats in a lot of ways, but I don't think they get a pass on this one, because even if they vote Democrat, let's say there was a bunch of Democrats in Texas, whatever. Every time Democrats say, "Oh, we need to do something," the other side says no, and then Democrats are like, "Oh, sorry, okay, you're right, my bad. Let's move on to something else."
Oh no, 1,000%.
So at a certain point, I wonder if politics is that. I mean,
well, so
it's gonna have to be something radical, I think.
Here's part of it though, right? So like, you are correct in that. Now, part of the problem is that you also have moderate Democrats, right? And so let me really quick for 2 minutes go into what should be happening in the world of politics. Right now, we're in a position where we should be progressive as shit, right? Like, we just had a Russian spy as president for the last 4 years, and what we voted for, I didn't want it, but what we voted for was a 4-year nap with a dude who's literally named Sleepy Joe, and I want to be able to like defend the nigga, but I can't because he's sleepy as shit. Like, he's whack, he sucks, he's terrible. So anyone out there who thinks I'm some bleeding heart liberal, Joe Biden ain't shit, Kamala Harris ain't shit, the whole thing ain't shit.
Yeah,
like
I'm not rocking with him.
I'm not rocking with him. So ultimately, he's the type of dude to be like, I think we What does the middle of the road think? I think the thing about moderates is moderates don't go further. So you're right. Democrats deserve all the blame in the world, especially because you're allowing a guy like Joe Manchin to carry your name without doing any of the things that you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Any of them. If Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema today were like, you know what, let's pass something for, I don't know, getting women fucking milk so that they can feed their babies, or like, formula so they can feed their babies, they're not going to do it because they're Democrats in nature. They want to seem middle of the road, and that already tells you kind of where that is. So you're 100% correct. They're not able to do anything because they're basically feckless. There are times when, here's a good example, and sorry, this is a complete tangent, but I just want to let everyone know kind of how politics should work. FDR came out with a New Deal. In the New Deal, he had a whole bunch of different departments where basically he had the federal government hire people because they're unemployed. You got to put money in the pockets to stop the bleeding. Okay. At one point in time, we had a Department of Art where people basically were like, our job is to foster art. And they were paid for that. Now, when the economy turned around, people were like, all right, what's the return on investment on Department of Art? Is it zero? Get rid of those motherfuckers. At that point, that's when you kind of need like a conservative brain to be able to come in and say, our government's a little bit too big, we have to slow it down, right? Conservatives used to do that. And liberals used to be like, we need to invest in as much as we possibly can. And so you have this back and forth. We attach a social thing to it. The social thing where it's like, actually, now that I'm conservative, I think we should have smaller government. And also, God hates fags. You're like, wait, what just happened? You know what I'm saying? Like, black people like need to know their place and shut the fuck up. You're like, what does that have to do with small government? Like, I don't understand that. Like, what's going on here? And then the liberals are like, well, we don't want to do a whole bunch of nothing, but you know what? I'm gonna take a knee with the WNBA champions. And you're like, wait, what just happened? Like, what are we actually doing here? So I agree with that. The Democrats haven't done anything, and Republicans are bought by the gun lobbies, which is why we keep having this problem. But that's also why I think that until something drastic changes when it comes in terms of like what our government is made up of, we're not going to see any change. And we're not going to see any change because the people aren't willing to change it, right? Like, because if people are willing to change it, they'd be like, you know what? I'm going to be a one-issue voter. And my one issue is I don't want assault rifles in the hands of 18-year-old people whose mommy didn't hug them. 80% of people in America, if you poll them, are like, I think we should have some form of something. Now, I agree we should have some form of something, whether it be insurance, because if somebody shoots up somebody's child, why are they doing a GoFundMe for their funeral? Why is a guy making Superman coffins and delivering it to families and donating it? Right? Like, your kid, like, I remember they interviewed the mother of the dude that shot up the school, and she was like, please forgive him. I don't know what happened. Ma'am, you know what happened. It's your kid. What are you talking about? Your kid did that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like you, even my friends, like if one of y'all were like, yeah, I'm gonna go shoot up a school with a bunch of children, I would have seen that coming. Does that make sense? Like, it's not gonna be like, I don't know what happened to Karee. Like, all of a sudden, he just
there's always red
murder
flags.
kids. He bought an AR-15 in an hour and murdered 20 children. Like, it doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Like, there are red flags there. So it's like, there should be insurance on these weapons so that at least it slows down the process. Maybe this crazy kid has more time to figure out, like, do I really want to murder these children? Like, maybe I should get some help. Maybe I don't have to shoot my grandma in the face. Like, whatever the hell it is, he can figure that shit out, right? At the same time, if there isn't some kind of insurance, then even if you don't want to register it, again, like, there are things you can do. You should be able to registered militia, right? Like, you should be able to have to do those things, but at least have some kind of check and balance on the damage that it can do. Because right now, all that people know is that these families are riddled with all kinds of debt when it comes to burying their children who didn't ask for this. Parents probably did. Kids did not. Look, I'm sorry. Like, you know what I'm saying? People can't get a pass anymore. Like, at some point in time, it's like, what are you doing?
I do not disagree with you that people are getting what they asked for. when you ask for people to just be able to have guns, like what the fuck do you think is going to happen? If I were to be like, hey, I think it should be, compulsory that kids learn how to juggle knives, and a kid cuts his hand, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what happens when you juggle knives, nigga. Like you get cut. That's what happens when you have guns. People get shot. Like you're not taking an AR-15. Like you're not getting an AR-15 to go duck hunting. Like
Right.
that's
Absolutely not.
right. And that's the thing.
It's not what people are doing. So when people are like, yeah, I want to have, unfettered access to the newest and greatest weapon and weaponry and weapon systems, like, yeah, I mean, this is what you get. It's
and it's funny because they draw these lines. Why can't I buy a Stinger missile? What's the difference between an AR-15 and a Stinger? Why can't I buy a tank? Can I have a tank? Can I drive a tank to work? Why not?
On the real though, I know where we could get a tank. Like no shit, I'm not even joking. I know where we could rent a tank for the day. It comes out to be like if we get like 6 of us, it's like $500 a piece, and they got movie props tanks. I've been trying to get people to get with me to get one.
I didn't know. At this point, I'm with it because it's on the table. Like
hey, I'm not even a rapper, but I want to do a rap video with me on a tank, like I was Master P in '95.
I mean, 6 black people in a tank. Police are gonna have a lot of questions.
There'll be some sort of gun control. There'll be a conversation on gun control.
That's what I was gonna get to, right? Like in California, it was open carry all day long. You could have your weapon. Ronald Reagan was the governor. Everybody mount up. You know what I'm saying? Look, let's do this. We out here. And the Black Panthers were like, oh, is that what the rule is? Because again, like people have this conception of, I mean, again, whenever something like this happens, you say like, we need gun control. They say, look at Chicago. Okay, let me cover Chicago real quick. Let me cover Chicago real quick. Chicago is an organized crime war zone. Totally different than shooting up a movie theater in Denver, Colorado. Okay, right. Totally different. The other thing is where they get the pistols from, the guns from. It's not like they're like, oh, you guys have strict gun laws and magically they appear. No, they go to Missouri, which is red run, and Indiana, which is red run. And so then they go get the weapons, they bring them back to Chicago, and they shoot everything. So if Indiana and Missouri and the other neighboring states would calm the entire fuck down, you would see a lot less murder and mayhem in Chicago. So this whole thing of like, yeah, but what about Chicago? Because black people in murder. So you're black, so shut the fuck up, black guy who's talking about Chicago. Like, no, that's not the way it works. Like, you still have an issue where these red states are supplying. Kyle Rittenhouse is coming up to Wisconsin buying weapons. Like, it's interstate shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not that simple. Okay, so that's the thing there. The second thing is, one thing to understand about America is when it comes to the NRA, who is basically lobbying and working with all these different gun manufacturers and getting kickbacks and making stupid money to a point where they're not even really, look it up, everybody. They're not even fucking accounting right. They don't even know. Like, they've been investigated. 2 things. They've been investigated for like misuse of funds. And 2, just to let you know, the NRA controls every Republican, everything in the House and Senate. And they've been funded so heavy by the Kremlin.
I was going to say, weren't they funded by Russia?
That when the shit came out, the Kremlin stopped funding them and they went bankrupt.
Yeah. You got to love that.
I mean, Russia knew the game. They played it pretty well.
To the point where they had grades for these motherfuckers. Like, you had a grade with the NRA. A grade with the, and you touted that. You were like, I got an A+ grade with the NRA. Okay, so you have an A+ grade with the Kremlin. You're basically a fucking asset for Putin, right? Who not like, which is why Tucker Carlson doesn't even know how to like come at them sideways. Long story short, all I'm saying is this: it's fucked up. The NRA was born out of like a response to the abolition
the KKK
of slavery.
Being gone. It was when the KKK, when they were like, hey, let's crack down on the KKK. KKK closed up shop. NRA opened up shop. Like, yeah, it's not a coincidence.
It's not a coincidence. This is what happened. The NRA is a direct response to the abolition of slavery. It's rooted in white supremacy. So anyone who's like, I want to have my AR-15, there's a distinct reason why most of the people, whenever it's somebody who's a right-wing gun nut who wants to go out there and murder people and black people at a Buffalo shopping center. Like, there's a reason why that's the case. You know what I'm saying?
So TJ, it does feel like, to dig a little deeper, that one way to make people more responsive to this issue is if black people decided to own guns, right? I mean, that seems kind of cynical, but if every black person in America had a gun, wouldn't that change the laws? Wouldn't people be like, oh no, that's not what we're thinking of. We're talking about freedom. I mean, because they associate black people having guns with criminality, right? And I think that's the problem, right? For white people, it's freedom. For black people, it's criminality. And I mean, just like what happened in the 1960s with the Black Panthers, it does feel like that would change things a little bit if black people started arming themselves.
I don't 100% buy into that argument that people make of like, hey, if every black person had a gun, then that would change the game. It's because what the Panthers did wasn't just have guns. They had guns and they went to the Capitol. They didn't just brandish it. They went to the Capitol, and they entered the Capitol building, and they walked onto the floor of the like that's so. People often point to that, but it's like nah. What the Panthers did was political theater. They knew exactly what the fuck they were doing.
It was a little more aggressive,
It was a lot more aggressive, like they. And the response to that, in my opinion, was the appropriate response. Of niggas shouldn't have guns like this in the Capitol. What are we doing? Like, this is legal. Like imagine being at your job and like 30 niggas show up with AKs. You'd be like, hold on. This is some legal shit. You niggas can be in here with guns. We got to fix this. Even if, like, so like,
fair.
I don't think just black people getting their gun ownership up is going to do it, because I think black people own guns at a fairly high clip anyway. Like, I don't think there are black people who have guns. A lot of black people who have guns that are responsible gun owners. Just like there's a lot of white people who are responsible gun owners. It's just that when you proliferate at the sheer volume that we have in America, the guns end up in hands of bad actors. So the only way to fix that is to reduce the number of guns that are out there, so that you reduce the likelihood that it can get into the hand of the bad actors. Because, like I always tell people, I'm an idiot. This is why I don't have a gun, because I'm an idiot and I know myself. Like, I would end up shooting the fucking FedEx guy. Like, I'm dumb. I'm like, I'd be like, who the fuck is this outside? Like it would make me paranoid, because I would 100% have it on me. I ask this question a lot, like, how does all of this affect us as black people? And living with this type of violence isn't new for a lot of black people, not because black people are violent, but because black people tend to congregate in places that have less opportunities, which breeds violence, right? Like, a lack of access is what breeds violence. I don't have it. I gotta get it so that I can still be here. That mentality is something that exists in a lot of black communities. Not all black people do, but it's a different relationship with violence that black people have than white people. So it's not as visceral. Like, I grew up in an area where I know a lot of people who died from gun violence. I know a lot of people who died with guns on them getting shot, because having a gun doesn't preclude you from, give you some sort of magic bulletproof vest. You got to have a bulletproof vest too. Like, you can't just have a gun and think that makes you safe. It doesn't. It attracts behavior. It makes your behavior a certain way. It shapes and molds it a certain way. Like, you guys see the video a couple months ago, the dude in the car down in, I don't remember where the fuck it was. I want to say Florida because I want to blame everything on Florida. But he was just driving and he got into a little road rage incident and he fucking emptied the clip through his goddamn windshield.
Yeah, through his windshield. Yeah, I remember that.
Like, he did that because he had that gun. Like, I don't believe that dude inherent, like, he would, like, if he didn't have that gun, he wouldn't have been looking around the car like, let me throw this Nike at him, right? Like, he's not gonna be like, oh, let me throw this barbell out the window that I have. Yeah, right. He's gonna give him the bird and be like, oh, shake his fist, and he's gonna go about his day. But because he had that gun, he's like, well, this is what I gotta do. I gotta do what I gotta do, and shot through his fucking windshield. Like, like nigga, are you insane? Like, you've been watching too much goddamn Jason Bourne. Like, that's not how this works. But because he was able to get that gun so readily, and because we live in a culture where, you know, guns are like, this is how, and I've gone on for a little bit of tangent as well, but it makes me laugh a lot of times, like when I'm watching movies or consuming media, and to see the way that violence is just thrust on people, but then sex is something that people are shunned away from looking at. So like, it was that lady, the actress Ava Green. She's in the 300 sequel, and she was on like Conan O'Brien or some shit, and the right-wing pilgrim mob had got mad because the poster, she was wearing a shirt and it was see-through and you could kind of make out that she had nipples. And she's like, and everybody talks about my nipples. They talked about they could see my tits, my nipples, this. But nobody said anything about, or maybe it wasn't for 300. I forget what movie it was for.
Yeah.
But she was like, they didn't say anything about my nipples. They said everything about my nipples, but said nothing about the machine gun that I'm fucking holding. Right? Like,
right.
And she's like, as far as I know, my titties have never killed anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, but that's America, where it's like, you can turn on the TV right now, turn to your local across the broad waves channel, 39, ABC, whatever the fuck is, channel 2, and turn that on, and you'll see some show where a cop is like, freeze or I'll shoot, and then just murder somebody.
Right.
And then they're giving them a medal and be like, man, it's tough. It's tough being you. So like, that is all ingrained in America, but that's not real to a lot of people. Like that is so like fantastical that they don't see that as being the taking of a life, right? Like, you can watch these movies and consume all of this media and lives are getting taken in it, and people are like, whatever. But I say all this to say like the Black community, a lot of people in the Black community and Black and brown communities, and just impoverished communities in general, because there are some, there's some rough, white neighborhoods where they get buck, I guess, wherever, Eminem came from. That trailer park is probably, pretty tough. But you get people who come from this bias and they live with it every day.
Yeah.
That's how they live. And that shit never makes the news. Like, Columbine wasn't the first school to have people get shot.
Yeah.
But it was the first time
Southeast DC had all kinds of issues.
Yeah. And shit, I can remember the fucking neighborhood I grew up in. People constantly went on missions to go shoot people at school, because if you got beef with somebody, you know where they're gonna be at 3:15 when the bell rings. So like, but granted, they didn't go into the school with a hit list wearing, all of this, the drama of it.
Right. Yeah, the trench coats and all that.
Yeah, we're the trench coat mafia. We're gonna go and we have a hit list and we have this and that. Hey man, like that was new to white America.
Yeah.
Sandy Hook is horrible. Like, I can't think of anybody who would go shoot up a fucking elementary school, a kindergarten class. They got to be real sick in the brain. But at the same time, like, that level of violence where people have had to bury their children because of gun violence exists in Black and brown communities, and it has for a long time, where people have had children who've been accidentally shot. Maybe it's not, explicit and purposeful where somebody went and shot up a school, but the outcome is still the same.
Right.
And it's still a loss of a life that is 100% preventable. And we know it's preventable because it doesn't happen anywhere else.
It's prevented everywhere else.
Yeah, literally everywhere else on this planet where people are, not currently embattled or embroiled in civil war, everywhere where people were stable, people are like, nah, that's dumb. Like, well, why do you need that? And then for whatever reason, you get that right-wing population in America that feels that they're insulated from it, that no, everybody can have a gun and that'll make everybody safe.
Right.
Well, that's the thing that's confusing to me because, like you said, when you have a gun, your behavior changes.
Absolutely.
You feel empowered.
You walk different.
So if you're in a society where everyone has a gun and everyone feels empowered, wouldn't that make society less safe? Like, what are conservatives missing here? What are the pro-gun advocates missing, or do they not care?
They don't care, and it's crazy.
They don't care.
Because you got to think about it from this perspective too. Like, you could even take it out of gun. Like, if you walk in and there's a room and there's 50 dudes in the room, and 45 dudes are black belts in jiu-jitsu, you give them 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You give them 20 minutes, and there's gonna be some funk pop off. It's so, like, having that gun, like, it's because when you have access to something in your toolkit, you use it.
You use it.
Yeah.
You use what's in your toolkit. Like,
Right.
You're not gonna just have it and not use it. And I do not understand people who have guns, who have like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guns.
What the fuck are you doing?
What the fuck are you doing?
Like what is this? I'm gonna get you, sucker. Where you're like,
Jim Brown? That nigga didn't even get into the fight. The nigga who did that shit didn't even get into the fight. He ended up shooting himself, and that's all that's gonna happen to you. Like, it's amazing to me that we are here. Like I said, when we first started talking, that we're here like in 2022, and we've literally regressed from when Osei from the Second Amendment that was written by dudes who had muskets and fucking flint stock rifles, people who could load, who could shoot, one bullet per
like,
every 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Fucking last of the Mohicans ass niggas, like,
right.
Like, I gotta pack it.
Yeah, gunpowder and
oh shit, I dropped the ball. Gotta get another one. Like, and now, like, they couldn't even potentially conceive of the fact that somebody let a child walk around with a gun like they do today.
So that's the funny thing. So let's say even in 1780 or whatever, right? And someone's like, you know what? We're gonna write the Second Amendment to not read what I read earlier. Is that just gonna be like, if you're an American, congratulations, get you a fucking weapon, my nigga. Like, it's on and crack it. And someone was like, oh, forsooth, finally, I'm going to shoot children. They'd be like, okay, whoop.
Yeah, right.
Time the fuck out.
Yeah.
Like, all the niggas, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, they'd be like, okay.
Even worse.
You
gotta think about it from this perspective. If in 1791, right, when they do the Bill of Rights, they write the Second Amendment, and they're like, everybody can have a gun. If in fucking 1792, a classroom full of kids got shot, they would be like, in 1793, the fucking 11th Amendment would have been
right.
No more guns.
Yeah.
No more guns. That was bad. I mean, shit, we did it with liquor.
Yeah.
Well, no, here's the funny thing. We did it with assault rifles.
Yeah.
Yeah, we absolutely
did it with assault rifles
in the 90s.
In the 90s. And then they let that shit go away and everything went to hell.
But that happened because was Bill Bradley? Brady bill, right?
Yeah,
the Brady bill.
Because Brady, they put that motherfucker in a wheelchair, and that was after Reagan had already been shot. I mean, he didn't get shot with an assault rifle, but it's the same shit. Like, they was like, yeah, right. That's why he's still here, or was still here, not here now.
Yeah.
That nigga long gone. Good. But like, So you're right. We did have it, and they let it expire. And you would think that with Scalise getting shot, right? He would be like, guns are bad. But he took the tact of, no, at least there was a good guy with a gun there, which, come on, sis. You're a black woman. You can do better than that.
Look. No, she's a black lesbian. She could have taken a quick nap and because here's the thing.
Done better than that.
Here's the thing. When people say like, oh my God, they murdered children. What's it gonna take for you guys? I always tell them, like, this is how I know that a lot of people don't follow what happens in the world. They murdered children. A dude traveled from West Virginia and literally was like, excuse me, where are they practicing baseball? Yeah, the Republicans, not the Dems. The Republicans, where they're over there? Sweet. And they were saved by a black dude and a black lesbian. And Scalise is like the only one who got hit, right? From what I remember. I think he's the only one who actually got like hit and like actually had to take time off.
Yeah, that was
and
serious.
He came back, he was like, we need more guns and more persecution of gays and blacks. Like, so it's like, forget the children. You can't murder them and have them be, you can't shoot at them and have them be like, yo, you know what? That was a close call. I don't know if we can practice base. They're like, back to business as usual. Back to business as usual. So it's like, and it's funny because I was talking to JT about this, right? And what's his name? What's his name? Gobert, the congressman who was like put up the thing with AOC, like getting decapitated. What did they think? Okay. He came out recently and said, you know what? In this political climate, as a Republican, this is what he said out of his mouth. Like I saw him say this. He says, as a Republican, you can't even lie to Congress or the FBI anymore.
That's the definition of white privilege.
What? He's like, yeah, if you lie to them, they just keep coming after you and try to figure out like what you lied about. Isn't that wrong? It's like, wait, what? So whenever people say things like, I'm going to work with Republicans across the aisle, that is a terrorist organization that's been funded by the Kremlin. You can't work with that. Like, and that's why whenever Joe Manchin says things like, oh, we have to work with our friends from across, I get it. You're the richest man in West Virginia. You're taking these people for a ride. You ain't shit. You got mistresses all over the place. You drive a Maserati to the fucking Capitol every day. You ain't shit. You ain't shit. You ain't shit. I completely get it. Joe Manchin. If you're watching this, you ain't shit. You ain't shit. We know that you're cheating on your wife, you son of a bitch. Like,
he ain't shit.
You ain't. No, he's
in closing, he ain't shit.
He's the worst person of all time. I totally get it. But like, at some point in time, people have to be like, that's the worst guy of all time, and he wants to work across the aisle with terrorists, and we're not going to do it. Like, at some point in time, we have to jump this. We have to make this leap from like, oh, you know, Republicans have some good in them somehow. Like, no, that is Anakin fucking Skywalker, bro. Like,
yeah.
That motherfucker blew up planets. Like, no, there's none of that. And I don't care if one day they come back and they're like, oh, let me throw the Emperor in the thing. Like, no.
Mitch McConnell is 1,000% evil. And yeah, he's like, it is what it is. He's 100% just evil.
It is what it is. Like that. And then when people are like, oh, well, you know, all this division, shut the fuck up. They made the division. They made it. And they won it. It's not like they don't want it. Own the libs. No one says own the repubs. What do you even say to that? It's just like, look, dude, I just want to make sure that when I wake up in the morning, no one fucks with me. I can make my money. I can kick it with my friends. I can kick it with my family, and no one's gonna try to like come at me sideways because of who the fuck it is that I am. And Republicans are like, yeah, no, I'm good. Like, it's like Michael Chase said one time in his stand-up, he was like, there was a point in time in this country, and again, this is between conservatives and moderates and liberals, like on one side. And moderates, I don't give a fuck about, but they're not as bad as conservatives. And he was like, there was a point in time when people said, in the civil rights movement, they said, I think you should treat me civilly. And someone said, nah.
Yeah.
Nah. And turn the whole
and I want it to be law that it's not. Law. I want the right to treat you like shit because you happen to have more melanin than me.
Yeah, there's a through line
What?
through all this. I agree. Yeah.
I've been thinking, because I've been thinking about the whole arming black people some more. And another reason why, another example I could point to where I could say, no, it's not gonna matter. Like, that's not gonna be the thing that puts us over the top. The DC sniper.
Right.
That was a nigga with guns, shooting
And
random
training.
people. Yeah, and training, and shooting people out the back of a fucking Buick, and that did nothing. Like, he terrorized DC for a couple of months.
Yeah.
Like, and that moved the needle none. There was not a conversation about, because there was no conversation about, oh man, we should have made sure that motherfucker didn't have guns. Like, nobody said that. Like, oh yeah, he was ludicrous. He was insane. He was in Seattle shooting up his trees in the backyard, and nobody said boo.
Right.
Like, and as a black dude shooting guns in the backyard, and nobody was like, this isn't a good idea. I mean, I think it's not a good idea, because I don't like the idea of motherfuckers shooting around me. Like, so like, it's one of those things where, like, this is a conversation where we could literally talk about this for years and years, and I feel like every time we come back to it, it's going to be the same conversation, because what will it take, right? What will it take to move the needle, to move people, to get people to actually want to do something?
But that's going back to what I was saying earlier. Like, I think that in 2022, the toothpaste, and I know you're like, yeah, but other countries are doing it, but the toothpaste still out of the tube. That when a dude goes to a baseball diamond and shoots at the cats, who could literally the next day be like, I vote for that to never happen to me again. Like, they won't do it. So it's like, so it's like, okay, so it's just a part of life. The best you can do is dampen demand, right? Which is like, all right, so let's put on. So for instance, if you shoot Scalise can sue you, and there's an insurance company that would make sure that he's paid for his, I mean, of course, Scalise has the best benefits everywhere, but like, in terms of like, if you are a super parent of Uvalde kids who voted for Republicans, and your kids get shot, you can say like, okay, you know what? Let me go to the insurance company and make sure that like I get compensated for my loss. So that way somebody's not donating Superman coffins to me and it makes news. You know what I'm saying?
I 100% agree with that. I think that is the cure to a lot of this. Is
1000%.
The same way you cannot get a car because a car can hit somebody and hurt someone and kill people. You can't just have a car riding around without insurance. Like, why can you go to, Lou's gun shop and say, hey, yep, I want to have that gun,
a weapon of war,
and be able to walk out, even if you're the sanest individual, because you have something now in your possession that was expressly made
to murder,
to hurt.
Yeah, to murder, to murder. You can, and you could be at work, and someone can go into your house with your gun and shoot up the entire neighborhood, and you're going to sit there on the ABC News like, duh, didn't know that could happen, and then everyone. And it's like, dude, you bought the shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, the only reason it happened is because you bought the shit. All you do is not buy the shit. Like, and now someone else has to pay for they got to go fund me a funeral because you bought some shit and left your front door unlocked.
Yeah.
Like, you're liable. So how are you not being sued? Like, you should be literally liable for that. So like, if you create something where someone's like, okay, I have this weapon of mass destruction or this weapon of war, so now I have to pay $400 a month in insurance to make sure that if anything happens negligently with this weapon of war, that family's covered. Okay, cool. Right. Maybe I don't need this weapon of war, because why do I need a weapon of fucking war?
Yeah, like, hey, you can go ahead and you can buy that AR for 3 G's. Sure, you can have it. But that also comes with a lifetime responsibility of now you have to now that you have this gun and it's registered and it's legal, and we say it's your right to own it. Mm-hmm. But hey, guess what? Now you also cough up the $4,800 a year, 5 G's a year. Do you have that for the next 20 years?
If so, congratulations.
Or would you
Have 10 of
yeah,
them.
perfect.
Pay $50,000 a year in insurance. Congratulations. Because why do you need 10 of them? You're one dude. Like,
You don't need
are
10
you
of
more
them.
tall and or rigs? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, like the dude who shot that the Vegas country fest.
Yeah.
That dude had suitcases, fucking duffels full of guns, and nobody was like, "Yo, man!" Like the people who saw them wasn't like, "Hey, man, did I just see you like 3 days ago to get more guns?"
And you know what's funny about that is they didn't. The one thing they banned wasn't the gun; it was the bump stock. And the only reason was because it was a country music deal, right? So like a lot of people who were there weren't us, right? Like there were the people who were like pro gun, and even like some of the acts were like, "I'm no longer pro gun, I'm no longer pro gun." So they're like, "Okay, we can't ban the gun, so what can we ban? Let's ban the bump stock." What the fuck is the difference?
Yeah, look, man, country concerts ain't supposed to take that shit to the rap concert. You come out here, I came out here hear this Garth Brooks and shit. You take that shit over there. Look, that's for the little baby concert.
Look, if he would have shot up, if he would have shot up a little baby concert with the bump stock, I guarantee you that bump stock would still be.
Bump stocks would still be.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
on sale, 2 for 1.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note,
look how effective they are. And we use that shit as advertising.
I'll say, TJ, great
Yeah.
conversation.
All right.
Peace.